Hi, and welcome back to Celebrity with Nene. So I'm Nene, and today I have Reese and Jerome with me. Today we are going to be doing a review of the Hulu special Randall Scandal, Love, Loathing, and Vanderpump. We're going to be doing a review on that. Okay. Um, and so we're reviewing it so you don't have to watch it, or if you've already watched it and you just want to hear our thoughts on it, then you so I guess I'll go ahead and put this disclaimer out there. Like, I just recently started watching Vanderpump, so I don't know a lot of his interactions on the show. I started at the very beginning, and now at season 7, where Lala is actually admitting that he's her boyfriend now. There was speculation, but she finally admitted that he is her boyfriend. So my viewpoint on some of it may be a little bit different than somebody who has been watching the show Vanderpump and they saw him appear on there. But I don't know. I guess we could just have to see. All right, so I guess we could start off with the special started out and they were talking about they gave us some background on Lala. So Lala was Randall's ex fiance. She is currently a cast member on Vanderpump Rules. She's been on there for quite a few years now, and that was something. She went through all of this big blow up with him or whatever. Okay. So, like I said, they gave us some background on him and on her. So, he appeared on Vanderpump Rules with her some. He was also well known for working with Bruce Willis, and he tends to like women who are in their 20s. I don't remember if they ever told us how old he is, but I'm assuming he's like in his late 30s, late 40s, probably early 50s. I don't know. Did y'all ever catch what his age was?
No, but he looked like about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, the special it starts off with Meg James. So she's an investigative reporter. Um, so she starts telling us what she knows of him, right? So and she says that in 2021, that's when the lawsuits had began against Randall. Um, and then a lot of other people started covering the story about him. So Randall, he's been in the business, they say, for 25 years, and he's known for doing like low budget movies, but he will have a lot of times he'll get a big name who isn't really known for recent movies. Like he tried to cast Stallone, he cast De Niro, he cast Bruce Willis, and so he was able to give them big paychecks and ask them to only film for a couple of days with him. But that was the draw to his movies. Is usually somebody well known is in the forefront or is able to be advertised. I don't know how to really word that. What I'm trying to say. All right. They also talked to one of Randall's high school friends. All right. And so he is telling us that Randall has always been interested in films. He used to call the neighborhood kids over. He had a camera and they would, pretend and do different scenes from movies and stuff. So, yeah, so they said, so it's always been something that he was interested in doing. He actually attended the School of Visual Arts in New York City. And Jerry Bruckheimer, who's a big producer in Hollywood, is one of his distant cousins. And that's how they think he kind of got made his way to LA. And once he made his way to LA, he became a an assistant to what was his name? Mark Wahlberg. And Randall feels like the character Turtle from Mark Wahlberg's show, The Entourage, was loosely based on him. All right. That like he was the inspiration. Okay, so I'm stopping to let y'all stop. Is there anything or any points in there that y'all that stuck out to y'all or that I may have missed in that first little part there?
hmm I'm trying to think. I feel like there was something that they said like I guess it's not a bad thing. It just seemed like he was kind of a cold person already, like as a teen.
Mm-hmm.
And they were saying like how he like nothing bothered him for real, and that was like perfect for Hollywood. But it's kind of like I don't know, like why should you have to be? I guess you gotta have tough skin, but I don't know. It just seemed like he was probably too perfect for what he became. And you had that narcissistic type personality as a kid, like that's crazy.
Yeah. So it started from a young age with him. How about you, Jerome?
I kind of got the same idea. It's like filming as a young kid and coming up and seeing that there were connections there with people he could connect with. He's like he wanted to film, but it's like it seemed like with his attitude, they was more about wanting the idea of being that
Mm,
person, that producer, and with being able to sign the big names that aren't acting as well, like you say with Stallone and such, and almost getting Schwarzenegger. Um, it was really something to look at, and what really got me was how he dealt with Bruce Willis,
yes.
and
Yes,
when it,
we're gonna get to that. Yeah. Hmm.
but
That
yeah,
was.
so that when that happened, I was like, wow.
Hmm. Okay. So he actually ended up creating his own company. It was the Emmett Furla film company. It was with a guy. His last name was Furla. They didn't really talk a whole lot about him, or maybe I missed when they talked about that guy. Right. All right. And so, as I said earlier, he was making these low budget movies. He wasn't making like Oscar worthy movies. They were, kind of like you said, low budget action movies. All right. And so he would get a big name. Like at one point, he had gotten Stallone for a movie. He paid him $8 million for 1 week. So of course, that would entice a guy like Stallone, who he's not making a bunch of money when he films his movies. So of course, that would entice probably anybody. You know, I might go do a low budget movie for 8 million. I shouldn't say probably. I would run off and go do a low budget movie for $8 million. If I only had to work for 1 week, that's a lot of money. And then he did the same thing with De Niro. He paid him. It was a couple of millions for 2 weeks worth of work. Okay. Um, he tried to create a reality show about himself, but it never even aired. It didn't make it anywhere. It was bad. He was just doing a lot of screaming at his assistants and being, as JC said, it's like he wanted the notoriety, but he just didn't know how to act like a decent person almost. And so that's what it had caught. Um, he did kind of have a bit of a break when he teamed up with Martin Scorsese. Um, and so they're also like a little friendship and stuff. And so he got to really see like how a big Hollywood producer like lives, the opulence of being that guy, the big houses, the private jets, and things of that nature. And I guess that's what kind of started fueling his greed when he saw how, Martin Scorsese was living. So they talked to a couple of his personal assistants. The first one being a guy who he said, for the most part, like his job was filling up Randall's cars with gas. He was doing little meaningless things like that. He said the first time that he met him, the guy, he was in his underwear. And he said his first assignment was to find Randall some clothes and IVs. Because I guess he was so drunk he needed to be rehydrated, and he didn't have any clothes. He wasn't wearing any clothes. So he did say that was the dumbest decision he ever made. We also learned that before he got with Lala, he had been married to a woman that he married her in her late teens. So I'm thinking maybe she was like 18 or 19. Because they didn't say it wasn't legal him being with her. So I'm assuming that's where she was. They didn't shoot and they had 2 children together, and their marriage broke up when he met Lala. He started having an affair with her. All right, and so Lala is on Vanderpump Rules. In case you don't know what Vanderpump Rules is, it is basically a spin-off from the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. There was a lady that was on that show. Her name was Lisa Vanderpump, and she and her husband, they've made their fortune from having a bunch of different restaurants. And so the show follows like her staff in this restaurant called Sir. Um, so it just follows their life. They're 20-year-olds. They're really beautiful. Some of them are aspiring actresses and actors and stuff like that. And so that's where Lala in the Vanderpump Rules gets involved in this thing. And I guess before we jump into they give us a little backstory on Lala. Um, anything that you guys want to add?
Mm. But, well, I mean, I guess like his personality, like already, like they when he said, like, the one the first personal assistant who
Hmm.
had getting the IVs and stuff. It just was kind of sad because it just seems like obviously nobody had a good time with him, and that dude was really messed up in the head, like because obviously it was more than just like odds and end things. Like he said, oh boy would barely get sleep. He would get like 6 hours of sleep, and then he would only get like 3 because his lifestyle was just so crazy. And then, I think I want to say in that part too, it might have been when he was saying like he wanted that lifestyle. Like he was like, oh my gosh, but then when he really was in it, he was like, is that's when he was like, it was just a huge mistake because
Hmm.
it wasn't what it was cracked up to be. Like he just wasn't happy, and mentally he was messed up. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
and something else that I forgot to mention, he had stated he had lost his mother.
mhm.
And
Yeah.
so he was also trying to deal with that. And there was like at one point where he was going somewhere, they were doing something special for his mom's,
He wanted to
I
take
want to say,
flowers.
yeah, it was either her birthday or the anniversary of her death. And he asked Randall for 1 day off. That's what
Yeah,
was crazy. He's like, can I
yeah,
have 1 day off to go do this? And he called him back over to his mansion to clean up dog poop in the yard.
yeah. And that's what I was saying. Like, and he was like, his mental health was just deteriorating
Hmm.
because he didn't have time to deal with nothing but Randall and Randall's shenanigans. And it's like, dude, I feel like he took the whole, what people said, the whole, you know, we've been there, done that, or whatever, and now it's these people's turn, and he just took it to the extreme because it's like cleaning up your dog poop when the man just asked for 1 day off. He said his only day he ever asked off the whole entire time he worked for him, and you knew what it was for. But yeah, you want him to pick up poop at your mansion. Like, to me, when people get that big, because I mean, you got to have more than just your assistants. You got to have maids, something if you that big. You know what I'm saying? But it's like you gonna call your assistant to come do that? Like,
Hmm.
I don't know. I just feel like, I don't know. The more I heard about him, like, just the more irritated I got with him. And that, obviously that's the first dude, and I'm like, that was already terrible, and it just gets worse. So.
Hey, Jerome.
Um, I'm gonna take a little different spin because I agree with both of you on what you say about him. But I'll say this more than once with the assistants that those two assistants that were there, he was pretty much straightforward on how he was. It's not like he sugarcoated it. And I think on some part of it, when you're someone that's looking for success in
Hmm.
the industry, that you sit here and you ride it out until you figure out it's that, oh, now I can't handle it. So I don't think it was as much of a surprise as more as, oh my gosh, I knew this was happening, but I heard the stories, but I didn't think it happened to me. Or they probably seen him do certain things, and it's like, well, he did it to them, but I'm the good assistant. It won't happen to me. And after them, it's like, oh my gosh, it happened to me. Yeah, but he was not about to share it. He was using them, paying them, I guess, but he wasn't. But he really wasn't trying to focus on making them any better, more than use them to for what he wanted to make him comfortable, like picking up dog poop.
Right. Yeah, but like in that instance, I agreed with Reese. There, you've got to have more people than just this personal assistant. Was there nobody else around that could do this for you? You know. But I totally get what you're saying. That's probably the mindset that they were in. They were thinking, hey, he did that to the last guy, but maybe the last guy deserved it. He's not gonna treat him.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so I can see that. All right. So next, they interviewed Lala's mom. We learned a lot about her. Like her real name is Lauren, which I kind of had a feeling Lala was not her name, but Lala was her nickname. Um, she was from Salt Lake City. She was always like athletic and a performer, and she had met Randall at the Vanderpump restaurant, Sir. That's where they had actually met. And then in 2018, they had became engaged. And so around that time, Randall had also produced his biggest movie, The Irishman. This one was actually nominated for an Oscar for Best Picture that year, which kind of surprised me because I'm like, what? I had never heard of The Irishman. I'm sorry, that may be a good movie. Maybe I should have heard of it. Had you guys ever heard of that movie?
No.
I've heard of it, I just haven't never seen it.
Okay. And that had Robert De Niro in it. Um, so in 2019, that's when certain things started happening, and people were starting to say that they weren't getting paid by him. And then 50 Cent goes on to Instagram and announces that Randall has not paid him. It turns out the two of them had came together and made a production company. Um, I forgot the name of what the company was called, but they had a production company. Randall owed him like $1 million and didn't pay him. So then 50 Cent got on Instagram and was, making threats. You got until Monday to pay me and all of this and that. And Randall tried to fake that he's like, well, maybe he was in a hospital room, but it looked real fake. He had stuff stuck to his chest and stuff. And, he apparently sent that picture to 50, trying to gain some sympathy or whatever, maybe trying to buy some time. 50 posted that picture and was like, the hospital won't stop you from having to pay me. And so he did end up getting his money on time, even though Randall did try his best to not pay him. Um, so then we also find out that Randall he was trying to create a reality show called Pump. I was a little bit confused by this because, okay, it's a reality show. So to me, that's you following people in their real life. But he was saying it was like based off of like I think it was Palm Springs, like in the 80s when bodybuilding was really a thing. So I don't know how that was supposed to be a reality show. I don't know. But hey, it was supposed to be a reality show. He had told people that Arnold Schwarzenegger was a part of this program. And so he brought on writers, brought on all his staff, telling them, yeah, Arnold Schwarzenegger is going to be on this. I need y'all to pitch something to me. So so he, of course, he hired some people. So they interviewed some of those writers and stuff. And one of the writers, she said it. She said that people were telling her, don't work with him. She had a bad feeling about certain things, but she moved forward. Like Jerome said, I guess she thought she'd be different and or maybe she just wanted a paycheck. I'm not sure what it was, but she moved forward with it, and she did a proposition to Randall, and he loved the ideal and everything that they had suggested and said that they wanted to run the show like. So then he was like, okay, now it's time for us to meet with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and that's when they found out that Arnold was not a part of this project yet, and so then they end up meeting with Arnold. He said they pitched the idea to him. He loved it. He said he was going to sign on to do it. But then I think it was either a couple of weeks or a couple of months later, Arnold switched talent agencies. So they knew by him switching, he wasn't going to go backwards and go back and try to do what they had going for him, especially since he hadn't signed anything. So then they said they all got letters from Randall basically saying that the project is open, their services are no longer needed, and they weren't getting paid their contracts. All right. And yeah, so all of those teams, they were basically dismantled and not paid. Um, so those people, they had to get lawyers to try to get their money, and they started the process of trying to sue Randall to get a hold of their paychecks, which I get it. Who wants to work for free? But I was like, y'all kind of knew he wasn't the most reliable when it came to paycheck stuff. Okay. And so they went to court, and Randall was ordered to pay almost $500,000 in unpaid wages. And then that's when he began to appear on Vanderpump Rules. Some people say that was the start of his downfall. Um, I, and that's probably true because that put him in a whole nother, his face is more visible now. Right. All right. So he actually started working with Bruce Willis on a movie. I don't know if they mentioned the name of the movie. And so they had brought Bruce on. He was supposed to work for, it was 1 week or 2 weeks, they said. 2 weeks, they said. And they said Bruce was having trouble with his lines. They said to the point where he had like an assistant who was like Bruce was wearing an earpiece and the assistant was feeding Bruce his lines. And I guess for me, this really bothered me what I'm about to say because, um, I have a family member who's dealing with dementia. And so I don't really like hearing that somebody is not being empathetic towards someone who is dealing with something on that level. Whether you know it or not, you can kind of see it or figure it out sometimes. And so we all know now Bruce Willis does have like a neurological disorder. And so they said that Bruce was forgetting his lines. He was supposed to kick in a door and he wasn't able to kick the door in the way that Randall wanted him to. And so apparently Randall went off and was screaming at him and things of that nature on set. And they said Bruce Willis didn't even, he was just like, did I do something wrong? Like he didn't even realize why Randall was yelling at him. And so I'll let you jump in, Jerome, because I know you kind of mentioned this part earlier. And yeah, if you want to.
Yeah, that really bothered me. One was the assistant because the assistant, she said she felt bad because she knew what was going on, but didn't say anything. And that kind of goes to what I was saying earlier about.
Or a writer. That was one of the writers.
Oh, it was like one of the writers. Yeah, one of the writers. The writer saw what was going on, but because of the contract, weighed against it and now felt guilty about it. Is it because one, because of what happened, and two, you probably feel worse now because you still didn't get had to go through trying to get paid from it. When because it even started out where they said it the acting waitress came to bring coffee and he's like covering the cup like, I didn't ask for coffee. And it's like, no, we're acting. You got to do this. And to show just how bad of a person he is, he was more concerned about you're messing up my movie, not, oh, what's wrong with this person? This is a person that's really paid their dues in Hollywood. And to easily work with him could have probably made everything a whole lot easier. That could have really went south. So I'm glad to hear the way that it did happen. But that goes more to show, one, that these people weren't looking at what willing to make particular sacrifices to get what they want, knowing that he was not true to what he said, as well as him just like Reese said earlier, he's just cold. He's just a cold person. He wants everything this way, no matter who gets hurt in the process.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just really didn't like it because first of all, I remember when they came out saying that he had first the disorder with being able to like remember words and stuff, that some with an A. And then it came out he had like Lewy body's dementia or whatever. So um I was like, that's crazy how it was kind of, I guess, discovered by the production people and all that stuff. But at the same time, I don't think that they should blame themselves because um you don't know the signs of it until you know the signs of it. You don't know what you're seeing until you know what you're seeing. So yeah, seeing him struggling and all that stuff and him not being able to remember or whatever, probably still just don't seem right because you're like, this is Bruce Willis though. Like, I'm just gonna help him, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know what's going on. And then his family, obviously there's probably signs for them too. They just didn't know it until, I guess, whatever happened, not after this or whatever. Then after all of this, they came out and said the first diagnosis. Then, well, like a couple months later, like he's retiring completely because of the whole Lewy body's dementia. So, um, I just think it's sad how that came out just because I remember that happened. Not like it was like a long time ago, but I mean, I remember seeing that in the news. And then when I saw this, I'm like, oh, dang, I didn't even realize it was found out like on set. But I'm sure, like, again, there was stuff that probably was going on at home too that people just didn't catch because you don't know what you don't know. And I'm with the one director or writer or whatever who was like, yeah, it's good that he's done because he was being mistreated and didn't understand he was being mistreated, as well as, oh boy, just don't have the patience to work with nobody who has any sort of issues. So I mean, I would even say even if you were sick for the day, you're not gonna get no slack with him. So it's like you got to be perfect if you're gonna work with him. And to me, that's funny because you're a B-list director. It ain't like you got one movie that did great, but you weren't even the full blown like it was. Directed by Martin, Scorsese. Like so, his name was actually what really got it out there too. And then it turned out to be a good movie, but I don't know. I'm just like, it's just the more he showed his sides, it's like even though people might have known or heard, I still think like like when it comes to what you hear about the horror stories behind Hollywood, like it's like he said in the beginning with the other people, are like you got to pay your dues. So people probably think that you got to be treated like this. Period. Like this is not the only person treating us like this, but it's probably not as common to be treated as bad as he did. Um, and maybe it ain't all put on one person the way he was doing it seems like, but it's just like I don't know, I don't know, again, like I said, the more you saw of him, the more like evil he was, and it's like it's kind of hard to even see how he was that sweet guy with Lala and her family at first, because it was like that's the only time he ever came off being the sweet guy. I don't know, like even the ex-wife, they didn't say anything about him just being this great guy or anything, but I don't know. He just I don't know. I just don't like him, and I don't like how he treated Bruce Willis, and I still don't like how he treated like the actors and all that stuff, and the writers. And yes, they might have had red flags or signs, but still don't mean that you go to court and when you're told to pay, you're just like, oh well, I'm not doing it. Like you led
Yeah,
people on and made them believe that regardless of what was going to happen, you was going to pay them at least up until this point. And like she said, they were going into the pandemic. So you're going to tell me, oh, I'm going into the pandemic with no job and all this. Plus, I'm not even get paid for all the work I did. Like, please.
yeah, and that was the other thing that yeah, these writers they were awarded 500K, but Randall had came back and tried to settle with them by saying, "Hey, how about I give you half?" and la la la. And they were like, "No, because we know if we get half of the money, we'll never see the other half because he's going to stiff us." Which I did like that they finally were sticking up for themselves in that instance. And then they also had put out a flag on him to Hollywood, like, do not work with him because they had even got what was I forgot what the name of the group is. It's a popular
The
group.
Gilded
The
Writers,
Writers Guild.
Yeah, the
right?
Writers Guild. Yeah, involved. Like, hey, this guy, he's employing people and not paying them, and so they had put a block on him where like, do not work with this man or with this company or whatever.
And
All right.
I'm sorry, I just want to say I know
No.
that, and that was the only reason why he came in trying to make a deal where he paid partial. Because once they put that block on him, then he said, "Oh, to work something out so he could start producing again." Because they wouldn't, because he wasn't allowed to produce. And they said, "No, we want all or nothing." Because they knew if we let you produce again, just paying partial, you're gonna stiff us again and keep doing what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And so he's sitting there saying that he couldn't afford or he didn't want to pay them. Whereas in the meantime, um, he has his Instagram and other social media presence where, he's showing off his jewelry, he's showing off planes. At one point, he was on one of those things, I forget what you call them, but it's like it lifts you off the ground, like you're standing on it and it lifts you up. I forget what the thing is called.
Oh, you're talking about when you're over the water?
Yes.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, and so he had all these homes, he had jets. Lala took some of the cast on his private jet and they went out of town. So he was living this life of opulence, but didn't want to pay people, which was just absolutely crazy how he was flexing on the gram. So we also end up meeting another one of his assistants named Martin Blaze. Okay, so he said, he was from, I think he said Philly. And he had a relative who talked him into going out to California, so he went out there, and then he had found out that Randall had a position for an executive assistant open. So he had applied, interviewed, got the job. He said he trained for 2 days, and then Randall left him. And so his biggest thing, well, he was saying that every day his job varied. So his job was never the same thing. It almost seemed like, well, I don't know how to describe it, but we've described it with others. Okay, so it varied every day. And then he said he had to pay for a lot of things out of pocket. And he never had that happen at a job before, which I totally understand. Like, what, not saying that it was okay, but it was like, what job do you have to pay for your boss's hotel? You are picking up his lunch for him and his assistants. He even told a story where Randall had went to Puerto Rico for like some, was it a poker tournament? I think it was, or it was a pool tournament. It was a
Poker
tournament thing.
tournament, yes.
And so Randall had told him, well, I need my table here. And he said the only way to really do it, he had to like, he had to use a
Overnighted.
carrier freight
Yeah.
or
Yeah,
whatever.
he overnighted it.
So he had to pay the $1,500 to get it there. Then he realized somebody needed to set everything up. So then he flew himself out there, again on his own dime, to set the table up. Then he said while he was out there, Randall was like, hey, I forgot something at the hotel or wherever. Will you go back and get it for me? So he goes back. It's a big rigmarole about him getting into this safe. So he had to like call security for the hotel to come and help him. And when they opened up the safe, there's a bunch of cocaine sitting right there, which that could have caused all kinds of trouble for this executive assistant. And that wasn't even his stuff. It wasn't his cocaine. It was Randall's. Um, yeah. And so he also, talked about being talked down to, and that around him, Randall was using the N word. And then I guess at one point, Randall used the N word at him. And he was basically like, that's when he had left. All right. So the last assistant that I was talking about, his name was Martin, and he was a black guy. Right. So all the other assistants that they had spoken with were Caucasian. Do we want to? Anybody have anything to say about some of the things that Martin said was going on with him?
Yeah. Martin really seemed he was one of the main people I was speaking of earlier when they said that as long as it doesn't pertain to me, I'm okay. And he might have seemed like someone who felt like he was, that's a nice way to put it, of a different class until he was kind of put to reality that in Randall's eyes, you're not. And it really, really hurt his feelings.
Mhm.
So
All right, Reese, what about you?
I still stand on the fact of I still think these people like took treatment that they shouldn't have taken, but it was because, you know what I'm saying, like you move from a whole nother state, you go out here, you get a job with, especially with somebody who's supposed to be, at least a decent director, or, had a decent name out there. And like the whole struggling actor, struggling actress, struggling director, struggling writer, like the struggling that always comes along with models, actors, all these people, especially in Hollywood. Um, that I think just, I ain't gonna say like common sense, but like, maybe they just felt like, it's not gonna always be like this. This is just the rough patch I gotta deal with. And um I don't know that he was hearing like a lot of racism, because I don't know that there was like a lot of people of color just around him like that for him to just hear it as much. Because I felt like he was saying he was mistreated, and he did realize that he was a little bit more mean, I guess, when it came to people of color, and that could have been anything from just talking about them, from seeing them on TV, or what I'm saying. Like I don't know that it was direct, like you watching him say this, but maybe you hearing his opinions on it, on how you feel about people of color or whatever, but you just put it to the side because you're like, whatever, this work, this ain't my friend, whatever. But I guess then when he came and attacked him, called him the N word, all this other stuff, it's like, yeah, it's gonna hit different because, what I'm saying, especially if you ain't never had nobody do that to you, it's gonna hit different as well. But not saying like he just thought he was better than like all the other black, all the other people of color, and was like, oh yeah, he would never do that to me. I think it's just the fact of everything that he had did for this dude, then this is how you treat me. Like, and I feel like, because I felt that pain. Like, he was really like he walked off the set. Like, he was like, I can't even do this job. Like, he was like, and it was something he loved, just like Randall with his camera. Like, it was something he loved. Um, being in that, or he thought he loved it, but he said, but this tainted him so bad, he don't want to have nothing to do with it. And I was like, it's just crazy how one man can make so many people hate the industry. And it's like, is it really that bad as a starter into this industry? Is it really that bad? But I don't know. I mean, all we know is what we're seeing from like these stories that come out like this. And to me, it sounds like it's just horrible. Like, it's a horror story. And you got a lot of villains like him running around, ripping people off, treating people bad, calling people like whatever he feel like he can call them because he got his privilege and his money and he can say whatever he want to say. But it's like, really, is that, you know what I mean? Because you could have really got yourself hurt saying that to somebody.
Right.
You
And
don't know
then,
what that word would trigger
so
for
I
certain
don't
people.
want it to seem like he was only mistreating these male assistants because he also had a female assistant who she said he exposed himself to her. He used to use the bathroom all the time and leave the door open. She said he used to take phone calls while he used to take phone calls and then go in the bathroom and use the bathroom. And because he was taking a phone call while he was using the bathroom, he wasn't flushing the toilets. So she said she was going behind him having to flush toilets. So I don't want to make it seem like he was only being mean to men. He was mistreating women too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. He was mistreating everybody. Everybody.
Yeah. And I think like for her, or like, she was only assistant, I guess they talked, because the other person was a writer. But like, he mistreated everybody except his wife until he was end up getting in trouble with that personal stuff. But um, he literally, like, even with the women, like, it's like he was like a I don't know, exposing yourself. Like, she said she came in to go to bring him something, and he was like naked on the couch. And then when he saw her, he's like, "Come in." And then as soon as she comes in, it's like, oh, sorry, and put a pillow just right there. To me, even just that pillow there is still uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like, she was young, is uncomfortable. She don't know what to do. This is her boss. Like, like, how you supposed to respond? But I felt like he was waiting to see what her response would be first, and then I guess her being shocked, he covered it. Then maybe even wait a little bit to see if she'd be like, it's okay. But I guess because she still seemed uncomfortable, he didn't make an advance. But I feel like he's that type probably too, like touching them, probably like, it's probably other people that didn't come out. He probably was touching people, probably showing them stuff he shouldn't have showed them, probably inappropriate relationships because people maybe thought like, if I do this, then maybe I won't have to deal with some of the mean stuff they see him doing to other people. It's just crazy. Like, I just feel like he just was a overprivileged person, but you wasn't even an A-list director.
No.
Yeah. It's like he wanted the A-list personality, but and the A-list perks, because you hear about A-listers, whether it be actors, actresses, or even in the music industry, and they can be like America's sweetheart or whatever, but find out they are just straight dog to their assistants. And to go back to, I was thinking like when he has his assistant go back 35 minutes to the hotel to pick up the package, that package says a lot to me too. It says that to me that a lot of his attitude things he was doing half the time, like when he talked about he had to have the IV and stuff from partying and stuff, he might not always been in his mindset. Like, even when a girl came in, he could have sat there with that, just like reset. And I totally agree. Another thing is he could have been still half out of it, because he was sitting on the floor. Like, I think this was like sitting on, think if you himself like sitting on the floor, leaning back on the couch, or how have you, or and grabbing the pillow. And I'm like, or if he was sitting on the couch, and I'm like, he really could have been spaced out, because that's how the same way he was when he was in the underwear with the other assistant and was asking for an IV and some clothes.
Yeah, he could have been completely inebriated with whatever substance, whether it was the alcohol or the cocaine or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Either
yeah.
way, he a monster and a dog.
Yeah.
Because it comes out later that he still was a dog.
Okay. So then it goes into the end of his relationship with Lala. So Lala's castmates one day started sending her pictures of Randall going into like a hotel and being in the elevator and things with these women. They sent these pictures to her, and then it started coming out on blogs. She said, apparently she had got a hold of his phone and had went through it, and there was messages coming in from women, so she knew he was being unfaithful to her. And then there's different versions of the story of what happened. Like she says that he like he pushed her, basically assaulted her, trying to get his phone back. He says that didn't happen. So we don't know what truly happened in that instance. But they ended up breaking up. He went out of town for a trip. He said he had to go work in, I think it was Miami. And Lala and her family, they moved her out while he was gone. He sent the assistant he had exposed himself to the house to check on her. And she told him, Lala has left you. She's moved out the house to call her things. And so at the same time, his business started facing more lawsuits. So he's still going through more lawsuits because he still ain't acting right. And we find out that Randall has actually started a new business under a new name. And also because so many people, there's so many lawsuits, the LA Times writes an article about him, kind of digging around trying to figure out what's going on. His ex-wife reveals, I guess, in the interview that the FBI has contacted her about him. Okay. And she also wanted a restraining order. And so we find out that the restraining order against him ended up being dropped. And then he did, I guess, kind of like his own little interview, like on Instagram, I think it was, where he was saying that it's not true. The FBI is not investigating him, has not investigated him. And, and basically that was pretty much it. Like so far, there hasn't been any charges brought up against him that we know of. So far, he's saying that the FBI is not investigating him. I mean, it's a possibility they are. There's a possibility they're not. We just don't know right now. I don't think if there was an FBI investigation, we probably wouldn't know until they're ready to bring up some charges against him. But I don't know. What did you guys think about those ones? Oh, and then also, I forgot to mention that Lala and her family did express how nice of a person he was until like she went into labor with their daughter because they have a daughter together. And then it was like while she was in the hospital giving birth, he had reportedly told her he wanted to go get a hotel room and leave her like at the hospital. Um, he wanted to leave her at the hospital while she's giving birth, and he was in the hotel. But her and her mom put up a scheme, and so he got a room at the hospital. That's where he spent the night. And while she's in labor, that's what he had done. And then the next morning, he got up, and they said he left around 9 o'clock at the hospital. Um, your child was just born by your fiance, and I guess you got better things to do, so you got to leave at 9 a.m. Sure. Okay, so what are your thoughts? Anyone?
You go ahead.
What did you hit? I didn't have a whole lot of thoughts. The hospital thing. I mean, just me personally speaking. If I know I got a child on the way, I'm right there. I'm only leaving if I got to. That to me, that sounds like someone. And if you don't have to, you want to be there for all of that. So, but it's already shown even before that he was pretty much a self-centered, egotistical individual. As far as the family, as far as her moving out, I like the way she moved out. The assistant there, that was funny. It's like, can you check the house? What do you see here? Check the closet. Check here. It's all gone. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you. She's gone.
Yeah.
And then, then the family saying how good he was until, I think that I don't know. See, I still have a hard time and none of this is taken up for him. He's worst of the worst. But I don't know exactly how a person does so much and he's like the best thing since sliced bread. Then all of a sudden You just notice that when she gets ready to move out, and all of a sudden he's not a good person. There had to be some signs along there too.
But you know what? Just from what I've seen on Vanderpump, it seems that he did a lot of love bombing on her because, like, you got to think about, she was a hostess at a restaurant,
Hmm.
and all of a sudden she started dating this guy, and she had said it like she had sex with him, and the next day he got her a Range Rover, and she did have the Range Rover. She had expensive purses and different things of that nature. So it was like I believe he love bombed her a bit, and she was young too. So she probably saw some things, but she did ignore it because she was like, oh, but he did this. I'm able to fly on his personal jet whenever I want to. He takes me on these trips. Hmm.
That sounds like to me with her as well as the family, he was awesome because he was providing.
Right.
That's exactly personality.
Right.
That's all I got.
Um, See, I think the way I took it was kind of like he probably, again, love bombed, um, provided things that she wasn't used to, things that, I mean, she was super pretty, and go to Hollywood, you expect these are the things that was gonna happen, and when it did, it's like, okay, great, this is the life she's supposed to live. Um, but I think having that kid, because it's almost like, I mean, it seemed like things was good with him and his first wife, and then when they had kids, it seemed like maybe that's when he checked out on her too. I think he liked that freedom and the girlfriend, but I don't know about the whole family thing for real. Like maybe it's something in that part of it too that changes his mood and his actions. Because I mean, obviously, once a kid comes along, there's things that's gonna change. It ain't gonna be the same unless you a hands off parent who just the nanny takes care of the kid and you don't ever see it and y'all just go live y'all life as if y'all don't have a kid. And that was her first kid, so maybe she wasn't like that. And he was just like, okay, this is boring. So now he went and found some more single girls to go do his thing with or whatever. But it's just like I do like the fact that she didn't make a big fuss because it could have turned probably worse because basing it off of how aggressive he was towards his staff, Bruce Willis, everybody else, how he just snapping.
Yeah.
That I don't find it far fetched that fight that she said happened really happened because I'm sure he don't want nobody to have anything that would tarnish him in his actual proof. Like word of mouth, like everybody came out word of mouth and he was like, yeah, none of that's true. Don't believe everything you hear. It's not true. But when you got text messages and hardcore evidence, it's hard to say, oh yeah, you're lying or you're not lying. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
I could see him fighting her for that phone. And then of course she calmed everything down because she knew like, okay, he do have this attitude. So I'm just gonna play it cool until she could get away. And she did what she had to do. And I respect her and the family for that. And I think that like the family already had their bad issues with him when she had the baby. But I think after her having to leave and then everything coming out, they realized like how much worse of a person he was than what he even showed them. And that's why I think at the end the brother was like, I hate him.
Yeah.
And the mom, I think it hurt because he was such a good guy and there for the family as a whole when the dad died that it's like, how could this guy be the same guy? But it's possible when somebody's a narcissist, narcissistic people hide that side from the people they don't want to see it until they can't do it no more. And I think he hit points where he couldn't do it no more. He started getting caught. And then as far as I mean, shoot, as far as I'm like changing his company names and still like the fact that nothing is happening. Hopefully, this brings light to a lot of stuff and adds more. Maybe more people come out and say things, or more people start suing for things they didn't get. I don't know, because like somebody like him, when it's these blue collar or these white collar crimes, whatever, whatever white collar crimes, it's harder to get them because they find all these loopholes and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah. But I think the one thing is there could be investigations and we just don't quite know yet.
yeah, but they could take so long that these people are suffering. Like, I mean, I guess with any case where people getting their money stolen, it could take forever for you to get it back. Like, you might even be alive by the time you get your money back.
Yeah.
But
If you get it back.
yeah, But it's like for him to still keep being able to swindle people because he's proven he can't be an honest man when it comes to these people money. So he's gonna keep doing what he's doing because he wants the lifestyle, but he's not good enough to have the lifestyle and to be able to afford to pay people what they are actually supposed to be paid too.
It may be a series like this that brings things forth. I mean, I won't name the show, but just like that other surviving an individual show, that once the show came out, then a lot more things were brought to light and things came through from there. So it could be the show that as long as it's under the rug, they kind of play around it. But once it becomes more public notice, because although he was someone that had a reality show, he didn't really have that name. That if you heard it somewhere, like, oh yeah, or you don't look at the calendar, it's like, oh, it's Randall's birthday today on Google. No one cared.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why I hope more people come out because, like, really, that's the only way to get people like this is everybody got to come out, everybody. Because it might only be some cases that even get him in trouble, but those are the ones that, once they come out, it's like, oh, this is bigger than this. So, okay, yeah, we can actually do something with this.
Mhm.
And maybe he probably out there still harassing and flashing people. Shoot, you might have a recent case. Like, if you can't get him in his pockets, man, send him to jail. If he's really the person that they're saying, and I have a hard time believing when you get different multitudes of people saying the exact same stuff that everybody lying. You know what I mean? Because they all had the same story, just different levels of it or different versions of it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yes,
and
absolutely.
even the wife. Like, I wonder what happened with that. All of a sudden, he paid her off or something. Like,
And I'm telling maybe at some point she'll come out and say why that restraining order was dropped.
yeah, because it's obviously stuff happened when stuff came out. All of a sudden, she put the restraining order. So it's like, what was so bad in your marriage that first of all you didn't even fight for your husband, or you didn't even, you know what I'm saying? It's like he just left, and it was like whatever, and you left quietly. It's a reason for all that, you know what I mean? Like she probably wasn't happy either. He probably was mean or mistreating or whatever to her too, or she was tired of the junk too.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, from what I saw, like on the Vanderpump, because they were accusing Lala of being in a relationship with him for several seasons, and they were saying that the wife had found video of them together or something like that. So I think once it was finally over with, it wasn't a shock to her. So maybe that's what that was. Because she kind
Yeah.
of knew about Lala for a while.
But if she found stuff, if he wrestled old girl for the phone, what did he do for her when she found video?
Right.
There's a reason she put a restraining order. Why she took it back, I don't know. But you don't just do stuff like that just cause, especially when you're the ex you're not even affected right now.
Mm-hmm.
But like they say, it's harder to say with when certain people, if you've been in relationships with them, sometimes they have a certain control over you. That she may have done it, and either could have did the bribe, or maybe she just kind of had a flashback where he took advantage of her, probably not having that strong of a will to be able to stand on her own too, and was afraid of how he may come, and that may have been the why, just to have peace, and dropped it. We've seen many situations in where work relationships or what have you, it was like, well, why'd you do, if that was me, I wouldn't be. But it's hard to say until you've actually been in there. So he might still have that control over her because of what she experienced when they were together.
And that's what I said about the other people. Like, we just don't know what they were experiencing and what mind frame made them stay when they should have left, quit, whatever, long before they did, for their own sanity. But
Yeah. But you never know. Maybe they needed the piece of a paycheck they was getting to keep.
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying, like everybody's reasonings on why they did whatever. Like I
Yeah.
don't know, but
I mean, you look back at a lot of your A-list celebrities like Stallone, Street, Streisand. They all have their early past wasn't exactly what you see today.
Mm-hmm.
And and they've endured things. But then some people feel like that you have to endure these things and go through these things with these crooked people, your and stuff like that, to be able um to make it in the business.
That's very true.
Hopefully, this exposure helps more people.
Yeah. Hopefully, it will help more people, whether they're dealing with him or somebody else who is behaving like him.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was the show. So I hope we gave a good synopsis for you. If you have not seen it, if you have seen it, maybe you agree with some of the things that we said. Maybe you saw things from a different way. Put a comment down below and let us know what you think. I don't believe everybody that watches needs to agree with everything that I say. You'll see that sometimes we don't agree with each other. So you can always leave a comment down below and let us know what were your thoughts on it. Did you like it? What were the parts that bothered you? What were the parts that you liked? Just let's get some feedback from you. And so that's going to be the end of this episode. And soon, well, I know we'll definitely be back in July when Love During Lockup comes back. But until next time, friends, bye.